Namaste, Ashishti.
Namaste, Puneet. How are you?
See you again.
Good to see you too. How are
And
you?
I did my work. I don't know about other people who had seen the first episode, but I have done my homework.
That's great. That's awesome. That's good to hear. That's a good thing about you. You're always, caught up with the things which were discussed. So that's great.
So today's topic, as you suggested, which I found very, very interesting, pain and pleasure. And it just got me thinking that every day the choices we make and how our lives shape up in the longer run, they are so influenced by these points, the duality of pain and pleasure. So, what are your initial thoughts before we dive deep into it?
Yeah, I think if the experience matches with what we have desired, that is pleasure. And if the experience does not match with what we have desired, that is pain. I think that is as simple as that. So the root could be the desire that we have about the experience, and that in turn causes pain or pleasure.
Beautiful. And then the first question which comes to my mind after um, listening to what you said is, then is there a way of tricking the mind? See, people put themselves through pain rather than going for immediate gratification. Say, people who lift weights, people who train for any kind of sport, they kind of bring in so much discipline into their lives. They go through pain also. They endure so much pain because they see a bigger goal. So similarly in our life, say if I want to lose weight, but I have a sweet tooth. So is there a way of kind of tricking a brain, kind of swiping the pain and the pleasure?
Yeah, actually, if we understand this bit more, let's say if you are addicted to eating sweets, or if one is addicted to smoke,
Mhm.
and initially it is for pleasure, but eventually one gets addiction to whatever the habit that has been formed. Now, there are multiple ways of addressing it. One is going in your subconscious and clearing the trigger or understanding the trigger that triggers that. What worked for me, I can only share that. I also used to have a sweet tooth, and before going to bed, I used to imagine that I'm seeing all the sweets and nothing is triggering inside me. And I did that for many, many days. I was like in a state which was I was indifferent, not really attached to eating the sweets or not eating the sweets. So I was seeing myself in a very imperturbable state, which was unaffected state when I'm seeing the sweets. And suddenly things changed for me. And this is a reference to the Power of Subconscious by Joseph Murphy book. And I applied it on many, many things, the things which were I was feeling a big struggle to change. And I used to feel quite guilty after eating the sweets. So I did that for many, many days, and my habit changed. And I applied this on many, many things. Wherever I was stuck, I would actually use my sleep to give me my desired outcome.
Mhm. Mhm. So I've read a lot about this book, though I haven't read it till now. So what we are trying to do here, the technique you've shared is that I understand as we are going into sleep, there's a stage when we are not yet asleep, we are not fully awake. It's like you're an alpha,
Yeah,
right? It's kind of giving ourselves some cues and using our imagination through that window, which helps us to.
yeah,
I think it's a sort of hypnosis. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's a
yeah,
technique I think they teach in the self hypnosis courses also. And I think even when you wake up, if you try a similar thing, that also helps. This is really wonderful
Yeah.
because I've seen when people are seriously working on their food addictions, they
Mm,
are told not to stay away from the food.
mm,
Like you keep a chocolate, but you
mm.
don't have to eat it. So
Yeah.
you develop that that restraint,
Yeah.
that it's there, but I can still resist it.
Yeah. I think it's also to do with, for example, if I give you some example, like I had resistance to, or I was actually practicing something. So I would actually use my imagination to practice. So when I was trying to learn driving, I could only go for once a week for the driving lessons because I was in the job. The job did not allow me to take a break. So I could only do once in a week. So I used to just practice every day in imagination that I'm going to sit in the car, put the seatbelt first, check all the mirrors, then switch on the engine. So I started practicing in my imagination. And when I met my driver after like a week or second week, he was actually very surprised. He said, I can't believe that this is your third lesson. I said, why? He said, you are driving so well. Have you driven before? I said, no, I've never drove the car before. He said, but how did you do it? So I told him about imagination. I was practicing in my imagination. He, of course, people think that's like, this is impossible. It's not the way. But if you look at all the sports people, if you look at all the people who are practicing certain skill, they're all using imagination. And I think imagination is quite underrated. It is,
Mm.
your desire or my desire comes as an imagination first, how it should be. And then you take imagination and you subtract reality, that is equals to either pleasure or pain. So it's the imagination, the things the way they should be minus what is real equals pleasure or pain. That's the mathematical simple formula for pleasure or pain.
And it's just so wonderful because most of the times we use our imagination. I think all of us use our imagination, but rather than using it for the things that we want to see in our lives, we go for the worst case scenarios, catastrophizing.
Correct.
That is, I think one does not even have to make an effort to do that. It just comes so naturally and takes us over to the point. So it's like that gentle rewiring of the brain.
Correct.
And if I remember correctly, they said people who had a skill, like say they could play a piano, if they imagined in their mind that they're playing a piece of music, how their brain behaved was similar to the time when they were physically playing it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think imagination is underrated because if you take anything, as you said, musician, I always say this to people, fear is the outcome of incorrect imagination. Otherwise, you won't have fear. You have already imagined that this has happened. That's why your body is reacting as if it's happening right now and you have fear. People work on the fear, but they forget that what created that fear is actually your imagination. So if you directly work on the imagination, create better pictures, better imagination, your fear will automatically subside and will be replaced by a different feeling altogether.
So I'm reminded of something which I heard in my childhood. The children, when I was very young, I don't hear it now these days, but when I was a young child, I used to hear this a lot, that don't laugh too much, otherwise you'll cry. Okay. And I don't know from where, like as a child, I remember having this thought that if I imagine the worst, I'll be prepared for the worst. Rather than if I imagine the best, then no, I can be taken by an unpleasant surprise. I don't know, like from where I adopted these things. It was kind of wiring ourselves to expect the worst. So whatever happens is like better than that.
Yeah, but then your body is already experiencing that because if you're imagining that, Body doesn't know the difference between imagination and reality. So, if you have the power, and this is, if you look at the temples in India, and you see that they're very imaginative pictures there. They will put some idol, and it will have a very different setup, like multiple hands, multiple legs, and there are
Beautiful,
sorry,
beautiful jewelry, I said.
but beautiful jewelry, uh, powerful god, or powerful angels. They could fly, they could. So that's actually the power of imagination, that you can create anything in your imagination. And first it is created in the imagination, and then it comes in reality. There hasn't been anything which has been created in the reality and then got into the imagination. It's always been that formula. And in certain cultures, the imagination was so much promoted that they actually left the symbols that, hey, you need to imagine.
Mhm.
You can imagine whatever you want. And in the reality may catch up later, but imagination in your body, the feelings would have already caught it up. So there are two types
And
of, yeah, sorry.
I just wanted you said something. I wanted to ask. You said leave a symbol. What does that mean?
So all the temples you go in India,
Mhm.
all the temples that you would visit, they would have, let's say, Lord Ganesha. He is a human body with elephant's face. Then you would have gods who have multiple hands, multiple legs. You would have Ravana, who has 10 heads. These are all symbolic, which means if you keep thinking what has been possible, you will never be able to create new things.
Mhm.
You can only create new things if you break from your usual thinking, usual imagination. That's where children are very good at. And adults are not very good at. And for me, I see these as the symbols of imagination. Then break what you think. I have only two hands, I can't do it.
Mhm.
Imagine if you have six. Imagine you have your 10. So if you have 10 brains, what would you do? And you see, the same brain used by me might be 2%, but by an expert, or by genius, he might be using only 10%. I think they say only 6 to 8% is what the genius use. So it's actually you having 10 heads compared to my percentage. So imagination, when we are looking at pleasure and pain, is very underrated. People don't even talk about it. And I don't know the reason why. It's considered as very dreamy form. You let people dream, let people dream. I don't agree with that word, let people dream, because dream signifies you are actually in an unconscious state.
Mhm.
Whereas imagination is when you are actually consciously creating. And people think imagination is visualization. Part of it, yes. Imagination is visualization, thinking, emotions, all three combined creates imagination. If you just imagine and create feelings, that's enough.
Mhm.
If you have images and you don't have a feeling, I think feeling hasn't still accepted it yet. So if you imagine and feel it, perfect relationship, perfect life, you don't have to live it. You already feel it that you have it. So whenever you want to access that state, just imagine that picture, your body will immediately feel you have it. And I think that's what The Secret, the law of attraction, they all try to talk about it, but they talk about it at the level of thought. It is actually at the level of feeling.
In fact, I have been trying to do this. This was like exercise given to me by one of my teachers, uh, the creative visualization of the future. And not visualization, again, it's the imagination. And she particularly said that feel how you will feel when you have what are you asking for. But more often than not, I feel I'm so used to thinking throughout the day that even when I'm doing this, oh, I imagine a future. And after a minute or 30 seconds, I am again thinking about like something from my day. So how to do this in a way when you are not very well versed with it? How to
Yeah.
do that?
Yeah. So, a very good point, as you mentioned, that when you're trying to imagine, your mind will distract. So, the imagination hasn't really got you in. You haven't really imagined what you really like. It is something else is now pulling your attention because your mind thinks it's boring.
Oh, okay.
You are creating logically. It is more, as I said, breaking what the logic says, completely different. Going to Mars, for example, imagine going to moon and then, taking a day off at moon and having like barbecue there, or you break first those barriers. Get it so interesting in the imagination that the mind really stays with that. If you like someone, for example, if you like someone in your life and you right now don't know that person, imagine that person. Imagine the house that you would like to live in. Imagine it needs to have an attachment with your emotion, that the emotions are so well connected with it that you really follow this so well, it will not be distracting you. It's like watching a good movie. When you are watching a good movie, you don't think about anything else. It's just so engaging. But if you watch a boring movie, your mind will be checking phone, you will be actually thinking about your work, and you'll think when you're going to leave the cinema and so on.
So I have two questions here.
Yeah.
My first question is that if I'm being distracted when I am imagining something, is it that I want something else and not that particular thing I'm trying to think that I want? And my second question would be that many a times we do have to do things that are not enjoyable. Okay. How do we go through them? Because the mind does get distracted. Say I restarted my yoga practice after a while, or even my meditation. So for initial few days, at least the first 2 days, I'll be more distracted during my practice because my mind is trying to be lazy. It's saying, "Who wants to get into these consorted, poses? Just let's sleep for another hour."
Yeah.
Yeah. So how to navigate that?
So number one is when your mind is distracting you, your mind has already got something else to act on. It's because it's an action mechanism. Mind is an action mechanism, right? So you try to see if you can add some fun to your imagination, because imagination is not a serious thing. Often we think that, okay, I need to be serious, I need to focus on it. The moment you do that, again, you're back to the reality. It's a more playful world. It's a world where you just have fun. So when you imagine whatever is distracting you, play with that. You go with that. You play there again. You say how I can pull this in my imagination. Okay. And then your mind will say, let's think about this, and you go there as well and have fun with that. And then bring back that to your imagination and see if you can add those components in your imagination and have something unique. And suddenly you think, wow, this is, in India, this is called Leela. Many of the things may be true and may not be true, doesn't really matter, but the author has imagined it so well that he has used his power of imagination so well that you and I, even after thousands of years, are still reading those books, right? So we are becoming too serious in meditation. Any process we do, we take it too seriously. And when you're too serious, your small mind, the serious mind, the real mind, or the latest mind, which knows the reality, is engaged.
It feels as if we are trying to do it with our mind rather than from the heart space.
Yeah.
Right? Because we
Yes.
always try to. I have such a difficulty at times in knowing what do I really want. May it be ordering food, may it be wearing a particular outfit. And when I talk to others also, many people say this, that I really don't know what I want. Even if I have had the complete power to have anything I wanted, which usually we do not, but say hypothetically, even if we do have it, so many of us say that I don't know what really I want. What is it? because we get so entrained again into that what is like what is desirable socially, what is desirable, right? So how to come to heart space, how to come back from here to here?
So actually, the real poverty starts when you don't know what you want. Because until then, you're running the race of, okay, if I have this, I'll be happy. If I have this, I will be happy. So the real poverty starts when you are actually a little bit rich. So it's a good state to be in, that, what do I want? And the exercise that I did, I think in the method that we were discussing, is what is my heart's deepest desire? So I would sit on that for 21 days. I kept writing, I want this, I want that, I want this, and I want that. But the day 10th, 12th, I started to get more and more clearer. Then I started to get more clearer by the third week. And in the 21 days, I had absolute clarity what I want. Now, the problem that we have, and I think this is a beautiful question that you asked, is problem is not what we want. Problem is we are not clear on what we want. Because universe is waiting to give us that. But the mostly we are not clear in what we want. Now, if you imagine that you have what you want and you continuously continue that, again, if your mind is distracting, that's not engaging enough for you. That's not what you really want. When you are imagining that, you are so engaged in that for hours and hours and days after day, it's really pulling you in that direction. That's exactly harmonizing at the level of your thinking, feeling, and perceiving, and with your identity. You will be called for it. But we want first the reality to change, and then we will imagine. Whereas the formula is you imagine first and then the reality changes.
Yeah, I mean, it is, I would say, so it feels like so easy, such an easy way to have anything, that it's difficult to be able to trust the process.
Yeah. Because we like struggles. Because if there's no struggle, to be honest, if you don't have struggles in life, people will not appreciate us as much. If you look at movies, the actors who get because the roles because their parents are actually in the industry aren't as much appreciated by someone who actually grew up from a poor background and then fought his battle and that got success. We are programmed to believe that struggle is what makes the man, and when we like to struggle because it feels the ego likes the struggle, that I did it, you saw it was so difficult. It's not that difficult.
Yeah, this is so true. The love, the appreciation for adversity, I would call it. That
Yeah.
I remember like going through a process where I felt I was holding on to my hardships because it fed my ego. It made me feel that I am, an extraordinary person, which I think everyone is.
Yes.
No denial, but not for the reason because I had these problems. We can grow without the problems.
Yeah. Because without problem, you would not be appreciated. If you and I share our life story with a lot of struggle, pain, and then we reach where we are, people, we think, we don't know what people would think. We think that we have really created something special. But the fact is that if you look at your life, I look at my life, the thing which made up our life, I'm actually not even responsible for that. It was just after the other incidents. Somebody said this, let's do this. Somebody recommended me a course, I did that. Somebody recommended me a job, I did. Those people appeared in our life at the right moment to guide through the path. And I cannot take the ownership of that, because those guides have a bigger, if I was on the wrong road, I would have not reached that destination. Those guides had played a bigger role in my life. So when you see that, you tend to become more humble. Then you say, yeah, this is actually I'm being supported for this.
Yeah, it's so beautifully as you shared it. It's like it takes off, the complete burden off my shoulders. The idea of being supported, like in your journey, because otherwise we keep thinking. The other day, I make it a point, even if I don't do any like formal practice, I make it a point to sit with myself some point of the day. It is a time to unwind, and it is a time to deeply reflect on my life, where my life is going. And this is one of the things I found myself appreciating, that it's like moving from that space where I felt I have to struggle. I have to, as if, find my way through a maze to the point where I come becoming relaxed about life in general and how things start falling into their place. I mean, to some people it comes very naturally. To some people, I feel they have to kind of rewire a little more.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it is difficult to say, but then when you talk to those people, you can really come to the conclusion as why their life is the way it is. Because you can't be a really happy person and complain in life. Because
Yes.
you,
I remember like they used to call a person who's unhappy Sawali,
right,
questionnaire,
right. Yeah,
right? A
yeah, yeah.
person who has a lot of questions.
Correct, correct. So then there is a beautiful line I was reading. It was in, I think, Bhagavad Gita, where Lord Krishna tells Arjun that you actually don't see what it is. You actually see what you want to see.
Oh, that's so profound. You don't see
What it
what
is.
it is.
No,
You see what you think it is.
no.
What you want to see.
What you think you want to see.
What you think you want to see.
Because you don't get what you want. You get what you expect.
Oh.
So simple. So you look
No,
at
it's
people.
simple for you. It's simple for you. It's not simple for this side of the screen. So how do I change what I expect to get?
So people, like, let's say there are people who have worked with you or have studied with you. They expected more in life. I don't know if that's your experience, but many a times they have got what they expected because they thought they deserved it and they expected it and they got it. Then there are other ones who somehow expect it, somehow want it, but don't have the desirability matched. So it's half. So they complain, but when you look at their skills, their knowledge, their values, people, they probably didn't have that desirability to have that. So people who think they have a deserving profile and they expect it, they get it. It's more to do with working here than working on anything else.
So a discussion, it's reminded me of another very popular tool these days, which is affirmations. And some people really swear by the power of affirmations, while there are others who say they do not work. So what is your
So there was a very good book by Beyond Cultures by Edward. There's a very good book written in 1970s, and he spoke about verbal cultures and non-verbal cultures. So now affirmations are very powerful in the cultures which are very verbal, which means like when you meet the verbal culture people, they'll say, "I appreciate this. Thank you very much." they acknowledge with words, right? In the non-verbal culture, they'll hug you, they'll cook food, they will invite you home. It's non-verbal. They don't say it. But they
That
use yeah.
that reminds me of a very funny incident. I'll quickly share it. So I remember one of my cousins came back from America. He grew up here, but he was there in America, and he came back. And we were just having this dinner time conversation, and I think I cooked the dinner. So I just happened to ask him casually that how was the food. So he said, how should I answer? Should I answer it the Indian way or should I answer it the American way? I'm like, oh, what does that mean? He said the American way is whatever is cooked, you have to say that, oh, this is really tasty, the pasta is really good, the pizza is awesome.
Correct.
So the Indian way of saying it is only today, the salt was a little too much
Yeah, correct.
in the curry.
Yeah. And you won't mind it because it's non-verbally he's still like have love you and you love him. Like when I go to West, couples say I love you probably 50 times in a day. But me and my wife, we don't have that. It's more like, we hug each other, we hold each other's hand, she cooks for me when she's in a good mood, she makes more things for me. When I visit my mother doesn't ever say that, I love you and I appreciate you, thank you for coming. It'll become very uncomfortable if she says that to me. She cooks a lot
And
of
you don't appreciate the food every time, the dal every
No.
time, the roti every time, right?
She would be very surprised because it's a non-verbal. So when I'm eating, she looks at my face. She knows looking at it. She would give me a hug. She would buy me presents. If I'm meeting a friend, I have to visit his house. His family will be meeting me. It's more non-verbal. So when he introduces me to his family, it's like I want to connect you deeply in my family, and so it's everything is more to do with physically showing appreciation. That's why there's when they get angry, it's more like in the body, and then and they suddenly when there's a fight in our cultures, because it's non-verbal, they cannot verbalize what they are feeling, right? So they shut down, they say I'll not talk to you, and for many years they just stop talking. Whereas in the verbal culture, they can actually have a conversation when there's a conflict. They can debate. They would say, I'm sorry, I apologize, or I say thank you, or I appreciate this. And it's more verbalized. So I think in the affirmation are very powerful when it is in the verbal cultures. And that's where it has come from. It was never in the Eastern culture. It's thousands of years old histories and the texts that we have. There haven't been any time that people were told that you use the verbal aspect. It's more emotional aspect. It's more, if you are doing an affirmation, the best affirmation in the culture of East is feeling affirmation. You feel that affirmation. Often what will happen is when you do the affirmation, you will face resistance from feeling. You will actually say something, but the body will say something, and what he is saying is actually going to materialize because the feelings are quite strong. So you actually affirm at a feeling level. That works in the Eastern culture.
I think all our prayers also across, like I can talk about, Sikhism or Hinduism. A lot of our prayers they are affirmations in a different way. I see the Western affirmations are I am healthy,
Yeah.
and these affirmations are more like devotional.
Yeah.
If I say that, that's like kind of praise of my beloved,
Correct.
the Lord.
And feeling like in Hinduism, there is a bhakti yoga, which is actually for prayer or of feeling people would actually, that is their path. Jnana yoga is for people who are very thinking, verbal, logical. That is Jnana yoga. Bhakti is this, and Kriya yoga, which is the yoga, which is if people are at the body level only, mainly that's their strength. If somebody is going to gym, maybe yoga is the path for them to experience the bigger self. So there are different paths. Ahankar, if you have an ahankara, then Mahagita is the path, very good path. So these were defined as a path, and Bhakti Yoga became very popular in India with Kirtan and Puja and then going to temple or Gurdwara, and because people are very emotional. And the whole region, if you see, predominantly it's a very highly emotional region. And if the power of prayer is not there, it can cause a lot of chaos in the society.
I have another, very interesting question which is coming up, and it's come from my experience. Uh, when I was younger, I was very religious. Somehow, I was very drawn, though born in a Sikh family, I was very drawn to Hinduism also. Their rituals, fasting and mantras and all of it. Uh, but the problems I faced as I was growing up, I was open to different types of, body work or energy work, healing, and all of that. I feel I've come a full circle somehow because now I'm appreciative of, the religions again, but not in the way of a believer I was when I was younger. But in the middle of that journey, I felt some of the Western techniques, some Eastern, they did help me a lot. I feel in terms of letting go of, say, emotions or energies or trauma stored in the body. In my experience, those things were better able to help me. I mean, be it even therapy, that's also a very, very
Yeah.
Western concept.
Yeah.
So now, at this point of time, I feel that is it that the indigenous culture, our culture, how it's being presented, people are not able to make the best use of it? Is it that? Or is it that the demands of the modern day, the stresses we are going through, are very different from those times when all of that came into being?
Yeah.
What would you say?
So there are two aspects. One is the thinking aspect. The other was the emotional aspect. Now, there's a lot of work is done in West on the thinking aspect. Psychology came out of that. Therapy came out of that. All the methods that we talk about predominantly came on a thinking level, which is very logical, irrational. There's a reason for everything. Even if you believe something, it has to be scientific. It has to be proven, factual. Whereas the other aspect is very emotional aspect, which is a lot of work has been done in East on the emotional aspect. Like you have mantras, for example, for every type of life or a prayer or any, even including disease in the body, you have a specific mantras for that. Ragas for even for different weathers, there are different. So those are more vibrational and emotional aspect of it. There's no logical sense in that. If you say logically, like, what is the meaning of this? Who's there listening to you? Logically, they are right. But when you truly feel this emotionally while doing that prayer and being in the surrender state, something happens in the body that it connects to the bigger self. And I love like the prayers, like there's a beautiful prayer in Vedas which says, Sarve bhavantu sukhina, sarve santu niramaya, means may all get sukh, the happiness, the peace. May nobody have pain and disease. So you're not just doing the prayer for yourself, you're doing the prayer for bigger. And I have personally used this a lot. Whatever I want for me, I share this, I want for bigger self, for everyone. And I can tell you that there hasn't been a time when my prayers were not answered. Because when I'm doing the prayer for whole, so I'm doing it for the whole good, why would it not be received by the whole? But when I do it for me, and he should not get it, but I should get it, it's very limiting. So best prayer, and if you see and analyze the prayers which were done, like all the prayers, there are hardly any like me in that. It's all about like you are doing it. I'm just like surrendering to you. That's the power, the connecting with the wholeness of the. But logically, it has no meaning. Like if you say logically, give me an example, will it work for me? Is it scientific? It doesn't. There is no such thing. So, but it's very emotional. And emotions are the one which have no logics.
And I remember one of Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. I cannot recite the exact one, but what it meant was that one of the methods to achieve self is through God. So Patanjali, I feel he was such an ultimate scientist and a poet at the same time. He said this is one of the paths to attain the self.
Yeah.
And I feel that is beyond all the rituals we have, which unfortunately many of the religions have reduced to nowadays, rather than imbibing the essence of all the practices.
Yeah.
We became obsessed with the, kind of defending that mine is the best, rather than being able to use it. How beautifully you shared that, the lack of sense of separation.
Yeah.
It is what makes you like all encompassing the experience. Many people ask me this question, that what should I use for protection? In the healing fraternity, people talk about protection a lot, the positive energy and negative energy and all of it. And most of the times they expect some kind of tool that I would give. Okay. And some crystal, some mantra, some this and that. And I feel you become vulnerable by trying to separate yourself from anything. So protection, to be able to protect myself from something, first I have to separate myself from it. And can I truly separate myself from anyone or anything?
Yeah.
So coming back to it, coming back to pleasure and pain, sometimes there's this saying also that no gain without pain.
Yeah.
That few things, if you want to achieve, that you have to go through the pain. So how can one differentiate that, that I'm not being a sadist? I'm not looking for adversity to be better about myself.
Well, I think a lot of work has been done in the world to make things harder, right? It's like more you think you want this, but your emotion is saying I want rest, and you still do it, which makes it like a hard work. And then you brag about it, like, I did it, my body was still resisting, but I still did it. And then there is something like more of boosting ego. I always observe this, and you might see this. People who advertise that, I wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning and do yoga every day, versus there are people, when I ask them, do you do yoga every day? And they think, yeah, we do it like 4 a.m. in the morning. They just have to, it's so natural that even to remind themselves that they wake up and do it at 4 a.m., I have to ask them. They are not sharing it like that. It's so natural because now their feelings are so aligned with that yoga that they can't resist it. It happens effortlessly. And it's no hard work. Whereas there are people who would advertise that, fight with your body, resist your feeling, and then you will achieve, what you want. Yeah, but then 2/3 of your part, which is body and feeling, is left out. So one need to align the body, the emotions, and the thoughts to achieve the goal, to make it effortless. Otherwise, hard work is just another food for ego.
And it's very interesting then that people, listen to or take you more seriously if you say something is difficult. Versus if I say, oh, this is very easy, oh,
Correct.
this is too easy. It's as if they're not able to really believe it.
Yeah.
And that thing of making things difficult, or that thing of wanting to, kind of show something off. I myself have been guilty of it, where later on, I realized that rather than for the love of that thing, I wanted to tell people that I'm doing this. And I think one of the turning points for me was a friend said that I want to learn guitar. I'm trying, but I've not been able to learn. So I asked him a question. I said, did you really want to learn how to play guitar? Or you just want to show off that, oh, I can play and probably, get some appreciation? So many times I feel that the things I am not able to accomplish, I'm not able to do, were the things I really never wanted to do. But I thought maybe they'll help me to kind of become means to some end. But I did not have the interest enough, as you said earlier, that whatever you're imagining,
Yeah.
if you're not completely with it, the mind will find something better to do.
Yeah. Because even for me, when I learned guitar, like I went for lessons, I took classes, and I didn't pursue it because I am more of a singer. And I thought of taking classes in singing, but then suddenly it became like very rule based. Like I need to do this, follow this here, this is a pitch. Whereas the part which I was just singing, there was no thinking. I was emotionally just connecting with the emotion and just singing the song. That's what my fun was, or the pleasure was. But the moment I became like, oh, this went wrong. Oh, this is not right. Oh, I should have. All the thinking, the logical, the rational part started coming in. I didn't enjoy singing, so I let go the classes. And
And is it true that some people are better at following rules and doing things systematically? Like for me also, I like just doing things my way, like whenever I feel like it. So I can really relate to your love for singing. And is it that those are different personalities? Maybe some people can emote more easily, some people can rationalize more easily. And for a feeling person, it's much more difficult to have a harder sense of discipline. Is it true?
absolutely, 100%, because the feelings are not logical. However, feelings are always responding to something that we are not aware of, because it's much more connected with the universe. So there are a lot of studies which have done, like a certain environment. Uh, I think it was in Canada that the sun, when the sun is not there, people get more depressed.
Oh,
Whereas
yes,
you
very
and
much.
I, we would just say, no, 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 let's be like, let's not pay attention to the emotion. But then emotion is very connected. So you become aware of the environment, because emotions respond to the environment. And there are a lot of studies, or a lot of people talk about feng shui and vastu shastras, and they're nothing but creating an environment where your feelings are more in harmony. They may or may not have any logical sense, as I said it, but at emotional level, they do make sense. So people who are emotional, it's always important for them to work on their environment, check what images or visualizations that they are holding about some things, because images directly correspond to feelings. Feelings doesn't need talking. You can't really have a conversation with the feeling. Feeling responds to images, environment, vibration, the songs that you hear. So if you have to do something, find a way through music, through mantras, through environment, through people, so that your feeling starts to get into that zone. So that is, I think, in NLP, they call it state, if I'm not mistaken. In that state, you do the task. It's effortless. But then you find the mechanism when you're not feeling that way, to the process, you start feeling doing that way. But without putting feeling as a blame or a guilt, or you don't like to feel like this, and now you are doing what the feeling wants. Feeling wants something right now. What is your process? So the feeling wants what is for a bigger benefit or bigger cause. That's your finding or journey.
Amazing. I feel we need, we need the ability to emote, At the same time, we need the ability to rationalize, to lead a good life. And I also feel that we really cannot change what we are. That can be my style, that can be my hair color or like my skin color, whatever. I think I can make the best of anything only if I understand it and if I use it well. So
Right.
with abilities also, I feel, being a very emotional, sensitive person, it's an ability. But then it has to be balanced with a sense of rationalization, wherein, like, because sometimes you need one side, sometimes you need the other, and it is basically the kind of the combined, harmony of
Yeah.
both the sides, the left and the right,
Yeah.
which gives us that vision to create the life we really want to create. Because in one area, I can be required to be that more, more feeling person. In another area, to make a good decision, I'll lead, the more rational side, the more logical side of me.
Yeah.
So, and I am also amazed by this one thing, that the same experiences, depending on which stage of my life I was in, say, reading a book. I remember reading a commentary on Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. I think it was by B.K.S. Iyengar. I read it once in my 20s, and then about 15 years later, I read it again. And both the times, my experience of the same book, the same, you
Yeah.
know, Yoga Sutras was entirely different.
Yeah. Correct.
And I feel we have, in this information age, we have like too many tools, too many tools. Even that wonderful book you spoke about, The Power of Subconscious Mind. I think all of us have heard about it. But finally, it's about, using the tools,
Yeah.
and that is where I feel most of us lack. That's why at times I'm able to appreciate what you're saying, but that's yet not my experience. And I think that's the place most of my questions come from. That, okay, I'm trying to do this.
Yeah.
Say, imagination. So what I started doing, I'll share what I started doing.
Mm.
So I started drawing with my imagination, because it was becoming difficult for me to focus. My mind was thinking, thinking, thinking. So I started using colors, because that kind of connected more of my senses to my imagination exercise.
Right. That's beautiful.
Yeah, so I feel the subtle
And
subtleties.
at the
How
same
you
time,
are,
yeah. At the
how
same time,
you are,
sorry, go ahead.
sorry, how you are talking about it. It feels just so effortless that, okay, I was just going off to sleep and I just started imagining it. I really want that I'm able to do that too, because then it's like beyond the rituals.
Yeah. And
The hard.
if you look at it, like there are there are easy methods available, has always been available. Um, Unfortunately, the text that was available in India has been written in Sanskrit. So we actually depend on the people who translate the text. But the people who translate, they actually put their version of thinking in the text. So you actually lose what has been written, but the translator adds their own thinking in that. Whenever there is like your point on we do need the logical thinking as well, and we do need the emotional thinking as well, or emotional uh, feeling level as well. But you will see that when the emotions are high, the thinking shuts down. Right? When the anger is high, logically you have done the training, anger management, therapy, and so, right? So the formula that has been given, I think it's in one of the Upanishads. I'm not able to recall the name. Even in Bhagavad Gita, the formula was given. Actually, it is mathematically given like this: I is greater than E is greater than uh, I. Means you have your own identity. Now, if somebody challenges your identity, it could be, let's say, you are nationalist. So your identity is I am an Indian. If somebody challenges India, your identity would feel quite attacked.
Mhm.
When you are, and this is what is happening in the world, right? Like people know this is wrong, what is happening in this country with the war, and but their identity is attached with one country, so they can't really see the feelings of the other person because your identity is attached to something. When you're watching a game of cricket or football or whatever, your identity get attached to one team. So their failure and success becomes your identity's failures and success. So I is greater than E. E is emotions. So when the identity is there, you see what's happening in some countries where there is some students are doing some revolution or there are some wars going on. It's all identity war, which basically allows feelings to have less presence. But when feelings are there and identity is a little bit lesser, but feelings are very active, they are greater than your intellectual thinking. You can't really think well because your feeling is so charged at that moment, be it anger, be it fear, be it pride. These feelings take control. So when you meet someone, when you go to, for example, if you go to police station, for example, how the conversation happen. You see, when the inspector walks into the office, the staff actually salutes him. So they set the identity that you are the boss and we are your subordinates. So the inspector gets into the stage of pride, and the staff actually get into the stage of doing, that we'll be the one who's doing. And now whenever he gives an order, they take the order and run with that. They don't really question that, why are you giving us the order? It's all the communication. If it is not set from the identity level, you can't really have a conversation at a thinking level. So in a corporate environment, you have a manager. His identity, his tag is manager, and you are, let's say, an engineer. The tag defines the identity that he's the manager, you are his team member. You will always have some sort of fear because he's your manager, because the identity is he's higher than you. And he will always want to take control. He will always be the one in control. So then you can have a conversation at a thinking level, but you know how the conversation has actually reached this point. Who's going to lead? What's going to happen? What are they going to think about, talk about? But if these levels are not set, there's a lot of chaos. Like if you don't have the identity, one would buy, like in a social circle, one would be on social media showing that I have a car now. So showing his identity is bigger than all the other identity. Then this person will buy a bigger house and he'll say, my identity is bigger than yours. And identity creates feelings that, I'm less, I'm not good enough, creates the thinking I need to do more. So whenever you will see the change that you want to do, the best changes are at the identity level, because identity really creates feelings. So if my identity is that I'm lazy, I will create feelings which are like apathetic or grief, like I'm sad that I can't really change this feeling. That creates the thinking that nothing can be done about it. That thinking is actually fixated, which is basically belief. And then I look in the world to support that belief and then reinforce my identity that I am lazy, reinforce the feeling, reinforce the thinking, and then the loop goes on for the whole life.
So what is what should I try to do? Should I try to change my identity, or is it a better idea to go beyond the identity, or do I have to do both?
If you are, see, identity will always be present. You will never be without identity, even if you are enlightened. In the enlightened state, your identity is operating, but we are not attached to that identity. It is still generating feelings, because feelings is what the body needs to operate and have the energy in the body. It will still have some thinking about what's going to speak, how I'm going to structure my thinking logically, what will make sense or not make sense. But you're not attached to that, the limited identity. Because identity is very contextual. The formula is like, you are not the same person with me as you might be the person with your family, with your father or your mother, or when you are talking to some of your friend, your identity will shift with that person, because there's a lot of contextual things around the identity. The actors often, challenge themselves because they don't know who they are, because they change identity so many times that they don't know often who they are. Because with that identity, they create the feelings, and then those feelings creates thinking, and then that's how they get into the character. But if one can do consciously the identity thing, it becomes all the play. It's all fun. It's all Leela. But we do it unconsciously. We take the identity in an environment where we should be having a different identity, which will generate different feelings and different level of thinking. We take different identity, and then we blame that, that person said that, or, that environment was like this, without realizing that the identity that we took was very vulnerable identity at that stage. We took an identity which was very, like me, approve me, accept me identity. And the thinking was that that guy gave me the look, or that person did not serve me well, or whatever. If you are going in an environment, if you're aware of what identity I'm taking here, what is the real role? They call it role, right? Like, what is the role that I'm playing today in this context? I think it becomes much more funny when you play with your identity and see which one. Like if you are doing yoga, for example, and if your feeling is saying, I don't want to do it, check what identity is operating today. That is that the identity which is saying, are you lazy, or are you will not be able to commit yourself for the long time? Is that identity in operation? So you actually consciously see that, okay, this identity is in operation. I would like to get that identity in operation. And then you imagine that, feel good about that identity, see how it's flowing. Before your sleep, you create that identity. And slowly you will see, you will start getting into that identity, and that start generating those feelings, and then new thinking. And suddenly you will realize, it was so simple.
And again, one of the questions I asked you a little while earlier, that what do I really want? I feel that is also related with this. And my identity, like I think one identity is like, say I'm Puneet. So one is that all-inclusive identity of Puneet as a person. And another identity would be in every situation, like if I'm playing a mother, like what is required of me in that role. So bringing consciousness to that. And also my all-pervasive identity, like Puneet as an individual, that should be reflective of the values I have.
Yeah.
Because then I think it'll be much easier for me to navigate a lot of decisions and choices.
Yeah.
So how do I create this conscious identity?
It's like in India, generally you will see that people have 2 or 3 names. One is the official name, and one is the home name, right? At home, when somebody calls them with that identity, they operate completely differently, and they are a different person. When they are called with an official name, they have a different identity. So when you create an identity, first you define what values this identity will carry. So for example, in case of your yoga, if you would like to, first of all, I do not recommend to get fixation that I will do it every day, because again, that is fixation. That's like, if I don't do it every day, then I'm not a good person. That's again, it's,
I have
yes.
a question around that.
Yeah.
What if I know that there are health benefits to it? Because say I have a sitting job, I have to sit for a long time. And I think yoga not only gives you like physical benefits, there are a lot of good benefits for your mental health also. So once you know that it's important for you, like then it does bring in a sense of urgency. So please answer like this question in light of that.
So the answer is in your question. You're focusing on the benefits, not on the process, right? How can you make yoga so enjoyable for your body, for your feeling, that you actually look forward to it and forget about benefits? Because, I think it is in Gita, which karmanye vadikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana means if you focus on results, you will be serious. Because then there is no fun, right? You're focused on like, if I don't do it, then I will not get health benefits. And all the research is, with all the respect, it's very confusing. One research one day says fat is bad, then they can't turn around now carbohydrate is bad. Then one day say
Coffee, another one.
coffee is another one, and then they now say cholesterol is not. Like, if you I think they're trying to understand body in a lot of research by trying to see what is the results that they are getting. But I would do the research in how many people are really enjoying the process.
Beautiful.
Because if the people are enjoying the process, their results are good. So
And I got my answer also as soon as you said that enjoying the process. I enjoy it when it's like slow, when there is no rush, rather than doing it, oh, I'm done with it now. My day would be good. Rather than that, it's like a sense of that I have all the time in the world.
Yes, that's the yoga for you then.
Because my first teacher, I remember, Nair sir, he used to say that you don't do yoga, you just let it happen.
Yes.
You don't have to do it.
Absolutely. And I completely agree with that. Because the doing is again logical, step by step, rational. This is the benefit of this yoga. This is the benefit of that yoga. You do yoga because you enjoy it so much. And forgetting about the health benefits or mental benefits or any of those benefits, because they may be the outcome that you would be getting. But as long as the process, you have found the way in the context, you've created the good context, you've created the environment for it, you have a right music for it, the right community for it, right people around you, right coach, right? You've created all of those things. And then you have also followed with the identity, which is not saying, hey, I will never be able to do it. You actually have a conversation with your identity and saying, why do you think like that? And you will see that you can have a conversation with your identity. Your identity will come up with a lot of answers, reasons. When you ask the question like, what is stopping you? You're counseling your own identity then. It's your team inside the head, which you basically take that particular identity, which goes to therapist, for example. You become the one and heal the identity until the identity tends to get ease and get enough counseling that now it's ready to take the steps to generate the feelings and complement the environment, community, mantras, whatever works for the feeling level. And then you are ready for the yoga. Otherwise, it'll become one more goal to achieve. Let's do. Yeah.
Because I feel with all the good intentions we have in terms of what we eat and the lifestyle we follow, I think that that urge to accumulate rather than enjoying the process, be it food, be it exercise, be it my sleep.
Yeah.
That I think takes away the soul of the entire process itself. Because we are just trying to accumulate because I want to be the best, I want to be the healthiest, or I want to be the prettiest.
Correct.
Correct. So I just want these boxes, I just want to have them ticked. I would do anything to just have them ticked rather than being totally present with myself. Right. And a lot of time, even working with people like as a healer, I feel that most of the times we have that affinity to being the victim. Outside things can change, or maybe they have already changed. But that affinity, that association being the victim with it, that gets in our way so many times. And then, as you said earlier, we see what we think, that we'll see.
Yeah. And I was something else I was thinking about when you mentioned about I think you mentioned something about the yoga. Sorry, you were talking about the yoga. Yoga is the physical aspect, and bhakti is the emotional aspect. The Jnana Yoga is the thinking aspect, and then the working on the identity. That is the aspect where we could refer to who am I, for example. We could refer to therapy. When you're going to therapist, you would see that you are working on certain emotion, certain thinking, and certain identity per session. And the therapist helps you disconnect your feelings from your identity. The job of therapist is actually two parts. Memory, we call the word memory, which actually in the past, right, or the future. Those are just imaginations. So therapist helps you to disconnect those imagination from your feelings. Imagine if you have a memory and no feelings are coming in. What would you think of that memory? Would it affect?
Then it'll just be a fact.
Correct.
It will not have emotional charge. It will not, bring up maybe anger or those things.
Correct.
Because we don't forget good memories. It's only the bad ones.
Yeah. So therapist's job is basically to help. I would use the word imagination, but you could use the word memory or future. Therapist helps you to disconnect the imagination from emotions.
Okay.
Once the disconnection happens,
okay.
So whatever your memory is coming in, they basically help you disconnect that emotion and let go that identity that you have created with that memory, that I am this person. This happened to me. This happened to me. Once that is gone, the emotions are gone, the memory is ready to go.
And, my, I think final question for today would be, as I would try to do this, or as I've been trying to do it, how do I overcome the resistance that comes in the way? Because my mind tells me one thing. Say someone's treated me badly in the past, and I'm still to face them, right? So that memory, my mind, in its own way, trying to protect me, it'll always come in the way. Say, oh, this is a mean person, or this is a bad person. So how do I overcome that resistance and feel safe with the new identity?
So you'll have to see first at which level it is being affecting you. Is it at the identity level, which means that that person makes you feel you're weak? Is it at the thinking level that that person is more intellectually smarter or better? Is it at the emotional level that you feel angry? This is something I look at this person and I feel very angry. You'll have to see which level that you would like to first of all work on. Most, as you said, anger. So if this person comes to you and you feel angry, take his picture and then feel the anger and exaggerate the anger. And then feel the feeling that you would like to have for this person. Again, look at his picture. It's easy to get it on Facebook or WhatsApp, or look at the person's picture, feel the anger, exaggerate it from like 0 to take it up to the highest level of 10, feel that feeling, and then feel how you would like to feel for this person. And then continue doing that. Then if you are stuck with your identity, you can also experiment with this. If you think it's an identity issue, this person makes you feel incompetent or weak, you bring that person's image and get into that identity and become that identity, exaggerate that identity as if you're feeling like you're there in that identity. Your body will contract and feel that, and then change into the identity that you would want to be with this person, which is very good, competitive, at ease. Get into that identity, feel that identity, and You will continue doing this process until you feel that identity now is established. That person is not taking the advantage of old identity. Now the new identity has been created. And experiment with that, and then you will see what happens.
Wonderful. As excited as I was for today's conversation, thank you for sharing so much wisdom and so many tools. You know,
Thank
there
you.
is like so much to take back and use all week.
Thank you, Puneet, for the session.
Thank you. Bye bye.